Hey, Your Honor. On August 30th, 1994, Matthew Benjamin Small entered this world just weighing over 5 pounds. He was our bundle of joy, as were his brother and sister. As little as Matthew was, he grew into a fine young man who everyone loved. That knock at our front door on the night of June 22nd, 2017 has forever changed our lives. We had 4 officers from the Sheriff's Department. They informed us that Matthew had an accident. He was murdered by a friend. What? No way. They go on to tell us that the suspect had used a knife and then shot our son. Matthew was gone. The suspect stayed with Matthew till the end. Why? That is the only question I want answered. Why, Kyle, did you murder your friend Matthew? This whole family is devastated. While Matthew was not perfect, he was a loving, caring, compassionate person. He was our son, a brother to Courtney, and a best friend to Todd. He was a grandson, nephew, and cousin. He was a friend to many and a best friend to some. He was a guardian to a cat named Guinevere, Gwen for short. The cat was homeless, and Matthew begged his dad for 2 months to adopt her. Gwen was his life as he was hers. Try to explain to a cat why Matthew's no longer around. She doesn't understand, we don't understand. This whole family is at a loss. Matthew went out of his way to make all of his friends feel special. If 2 of his friends wanted to get together at the same time, he had everyone over at our house. That included you, Kyle. You were welcome into our home, hung out at the fire pit, ate our food, and spent the night. Matthew was always out to improve the mood of those around him. And in the Bible, Proverbs 17:17 said, "A friend loves at all times." Does this sound like you? Why did you do this? Matthew was an upcoming starving artist. He loved making ceramic items. He was doing a wonderful job. Matthew was proud of his work, as were we. He went out of his way to give all of his friends at least one piece of artwork. He gave away bowls, cups, saucers, ashtrays, and incense holders. And I'm sure you have at least one piece of his artwork. While he was a teacher's aide, Matthew would get up at all hours of the night to help a student with the firing of their projects. The art community has lost a friend, an artist, and a teacher. He won't get the chance to teach the younger kids what he had learned. Back in November, a tree was planted in Heritage Park to honor him. It was a spot where Matthew and his friends loved to hang out. In November, Adrian College also gave out a scholarship in his name. Matthew made a huge impact on everyone he met. Such a big impact that Matthew has 4 female friends who went out and got a dragon tattoo. These ladies loved our son so much that they also put his name and date along with these tattoos. Now, does that sound like anyone hated Matthew? No. After this happened, I turned to Facebook. A few kids posted that Matthew was your best friend. So my question still is, why did you do this to our son? Matthew will never get the chance to have a serious girlfriend, never be a lover, husband, father, or grandfather. You, Kyle, took that away from him. Why? We will never get the chance to tell our son that we love him or give him hugs. And as tiny as Matthew was, he gave tight hugs. I will never feel his arms around me again. I will never get to tell my son that I love him or hear him say it back to me. I keep telling myself that everything's going to be okay. Then I see his smile and break down again. Now we have to go through the firsts. We celebrated his birthday with all of Matthew's friends. It made the day easier for us, but painful at the end of the day. His headstone got put up on his birthday. The holidays will never be the same. This past Christmas was painful and lonely. Somehow we got through the holidays. Easter will be here soon. Then it will be June again. Matthew will be gone for a year by this time. You killed Matthew day after our anniversary. I had to bury our son on my birthday. On my birthday, do you know how hard that was for me? No parent should have to bury a child, especially on one's birthday. June used to be a month of happiness for us. Now it would only be sorrow. We may have happy memories in our life, but there will always be sadness behind it. I want to know why you did this. I want to know why you felt you had to carry a gun and a knife. Why did you take these weapons to the park, a place where children and families hung out? I can't imagine the pain my son was in, his last minutes on earth, wondering why a friend did this to him. We may be grieving parents, but yours will always be labeled as having a murderer in the family. Your mom said she lost a son. I don't think so. She can see you right now. I can't see my son. Your mom will get the chance to talk to you one day. I will never get the chance to talk to Matthew again. Your mom will hear your voice. We will never get to hear Matthew's voice again. I hope karma finds you in prison. Your sentence is not good enough for this family, and if I had my way, you will rot in prison. I feel that since you took a life, you should get life. Lock you up and throw away the key. Matthew was your friend. How could you do this to your friend? When you took Matthew's life, you also took a part of everyone who loved Matthew. None of this makes sense to us or anyone else. I will go to my grave hating you. I will never forgive you. Why did you kill our son? That is the only question I want to answer. Thank you.
No, I'm reluctant to address you, Kyle, and it sickens me to the core to look at you, to think about you, to speak with you, or even about you. I will speak for Matthew, for the benefit of those who knew him and loved him, and for those who would otherwise be unaware of the heinous, traitorous nature of this senseless murder, so that all who ever knew you, and for those who have yet to encounter you, will know what you really are. Let's start with the number of true friends you had. Did you have any? Everyone I speak to who knew you say that they knew you and they didn't think enough of you to give you the time of day. Matthew, on the other hand, recognized your shunned status and took on your pain as his own and tried to help you by being one of your only friends. He tried to help by being there when none of the others cared. Matthew cared. Matthew felt your pain, and he cared. We can only consider what we do know. We know that you two knew each other for many years, since junior high school, I believe. We do know that at age 16, our children begin to drive and spend unsupervised time with friends. Since those days in his mid-teens, Matthew would share his time, his money, his family, home, room, everything he owned, including the roof over his head, all this, and even his daily bread with you. Matthew gave all this to you. For years, Matthew gave. You were treated as a guest in our home and were afforded all the civility, concern, and value that is customary for civilized people. What everyone needs to understand, and most importantly, regarding your sentencing and regarding the possibility of your release and parole, is that Matthew gave you his trust. You were never worthy of Matthew's trust or the trust of his family. You're a traitor, unworthy of any of the gifts that were extended to you. You betrayed one of your only friends, the only friend willing to invest himself for the sake of your well-being. I know how nations have dealt with traitors in the past. You deserve the same sentence. You deserve to be treated as callously and as thoughtlessly as you treated my son. We know that you carried a large hunting knife and a handgun into Heritage Park that day on June 22nd, 2017, a place where you'd both gone many times in the past, supposedly to enjoy and observe all that the outdoors has to offer. At least that's what Matthew thought. We also know that Matthew carried no weapon at all, not even a folding camp knife. He did not know that you'd been planning his death. We can only guess for how long. Was it months? Years? All this time, he thought of you as a friend. Matthew's mistake was in trusting you at all, and his assumption that there was decency in you when there obviously isn't. Yes, you fooled us all with your false, friendly demeanor. I felt the shock and deep sense of betrayal that my son felt when you began your attack. I know that if Matthew had been given a second to understand what was in your mind, he would have walked away without trouble, and we'd be alive today. We know that you attacked without warning, a surprise attack, likely from behind. We know that there were multiple slashing cuts on Matthew's arms and hands as he tried to defend himself. If you had even a shred of human decency in you, you could not have slashed your friend, and if you had, the first sight of blood would have made you stop. It would have caused you to feel remorse for hurting a friend who trusted you for years. This is called a conscience. Once the blood began pumping from his body, did this give you pause? Did you ask yourself at any time, why am I hurting my only friend? No, you slashed and thrusted his defenseless body, cutting him again and again as he raised his arm and his hands to stop you. You slashed, cut, again, again, and again. I'm sure that Matthew would have yelled at you to stop, and finally for help. None of this mattered to you. Your longtime friend Blood, his cries of fear, shock, meant nothing. As my son bled, still trying to understand what was happening, you decided at some point to end Matthew's trusting, innocent life. Why? Because you just bought a pistol, and you just had to get your gun off. So just to prove what a killer you are, you shot my son from behind, like the coward you are. My wonderful, caring son, the one who saw beauty in everything around him, died then, confused, angry, afraid, alone and apart from anyone who cared for him. His mother and I did not get to see our son after this tragedy. We had to wait for 3 days till he was released from autopsy. When he was brought to the funeral home, we became aware of the brutality of your attack. Matthew had 20 to 30 deep slashes that were readily visible. Words cannot explain the horror we felt and the emotions of two loving parents when they finally begin to understand the torturous and painful manner in which their son lived his last few moments on earth. I believe that you're a psychopath. I believe that you did this to have a place to stay, simply because you're too lazy to go to work and too cowardly to join the military. I believe that you chose to kill one of the smallest guys you knew, and that you made sure he didn't carry a weapon of any kind that day because you're a coward. I believe that your parents had told you it was time to move out, stand on your own 2 feet. And this was your plan to secure food and lodging for life without ever having to work, to have access to free drugs, and for some poor psychiatrist to show an interest in you as a surrogate for mommy and daddy. I think evidence showed that you wanted to kill someone for a long time. I also believe that you may have killed others before you killed Matthew, and that in time, we may find out that you had. I feel that you've proven you deserve no consideration. I feel you should be dropped into the deepest, darkest hole inside the correctional system and left to rot. I also think this has been proven with other psychopaths, that they cannot be rehabilitated, and that any efforts on behalf of the state in this regard would be a waste of time and money. I think that Kyle Horn and others like him all across the country should never have access to a firearm of any kind, and that recently signed legislation allowing the purchase of handguns to the mentally ill should be repealed as soon as possible. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you very much.
The client has a letter he'd like to read to the court.
Mr. Horn?
I want to first state that I wrote this letter fully intended for the family of Matt Small, the court, and my own family. Despite the charges weighed against me, I want it to be known that I did not plan this incident out. In the past, I have had experiences of bullying, paranoia, and personal threats made towards me. Although I do not remember all that happened, there isn't a day that goes by where I don't think upon that which I can recall. despite the fact that I can't take back all that has happened and undo it all, I wish greatly that I could. I'm sorry for what took place at Heritage Park on June 22nd, 2017. I'm sorry for the immense amount of pain I've caused to both Matt's family and my own. Matt and I shared lots of time together, whether we were at his home or mine. Occasionally, we'd even go biking, play frisbee golf, or Pokemon Go. I'm greatly and extremely sorry for this life that was lost, which had also been a friend of my own. Although I may have some mental health issues, I will serve my time with dignity. And lastly, I wish peace for both Matt's family and my own. Thank you.
Mr. Daly?
Your Honor, there's no question in my mind the defendant in this case is mentally ill. I've never in my life had a homicide case where at the conclusion of the case, nobody is any closer to figuring out why the homicide occurred than when it started. I have no idea why this happened. And frankly, the defendant has not been able to articulate any valid reason why it happens either. He doesn't remember part of it. I certainly understand the victim's family's position. And there's nothing we can say to justify anything that has happened. But there's no doubt in my mind that that mental illness was there and not being controlled at all. His family for years have been trying to get him the help that he needed. But if you're mentally ill and you don't want help, it's extremely tough in our environment here in Michigan to provide that type of treatment. And in a situation like this, we end up in a situation where there has been no treatment available, nothing has been done, and now we have a tragedy that can never be undone. And I believe that Mr. Horn is absolutely sincere when he talks about the regrets about what happened and not knowing why it happened. Beyond that, it's my hope that Mr. Horn will be able to get the treatment that he needs, and that both of these families will be able to ultimately be able to move forward as best they can.
Therefore, it is the sentence of the court that Mr. Horn, on count 1, will be sentenced to life in prison. On count 2, he will be sentenced to a period of 40 months to 60 months in prison. On count 3, he will be sentenced to a 2-year flat prison sentence. Count 3 shall be served first with 260 days credit. Count 1 and count 2 shall run concurrently to each other and consecutive to count 3 with no credit. Mr. Horn will be ordered to pay $130 crime victim rights fee, $204 in state costs, $60 DNA fee, and $3,687 in restitution, which doesn't reflect at all the loss to the community and the family. I'm also going to order that Mr. Horn complete and participate in mental health treatment during his sentence. Mr. Horn, you do have the right to appeal this sentence. My bailiff is going to hand down to you your notice of right to appellate review. Please send 1 copy for my records to show that you received it. The other copy is for yours. If you wish to appeal the sentence, you would fill out the information on the form and mail it to the address listed on the form within 42 days.
Okay.
I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you. I received back a signed copy of the notice of right to appellate review.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.